Hello, and welcome to the importance of offering choice to people who we may not even understand the complexities of trauma. But what I want to talk about before I actually go into the movement portion of the video is why it's important to offer clients choices, whether you're in a reformer class or you're in a MAT class. So the first one, excuse me, is that it offers empowerment and control. So oftentimes when people have gone through trauma, there's a sense of loss of control over their bodies specifically is what I want to talk about. And the providing choices helps the individualize to gain a sense of agency or self-confidence over their bodies, saying what they can and they can't do. It also fosters empowerment. Allowing safety and trust, because a lot of times when someone's gone through trauma, feeling safe within their body is something that is hard for them to begin to even acknowledge. But trusting themselves and feeling safe in their bodies are two key elements that need to be respected and heard, which is an essential part of rebuilding trust with themselves, but not only that, but you as an instructor. And it also personalizes the sessions. And if you're teaching a group class, all I'm saying is to be able to offer choices and allow people to pick from them. And I'm going to actually demonstrate this in just a second. But it gives them, and it's based on their own personal needs and preferences, but it also builds resilience. And through resiliency, that's where decision making, because a lot of times you might see clients, you offer them something, but yet they're going to pick with the majority of the class, even though they're hesitant or they're not able to do what you're asking them to do, you're going to see them attempt. So making decisions and experiencing positive outcomes builds resiliency and self-efficacy. So when you think about decision making, something like, let's say you offer to have them use either the ball or another prop, and the majority of the class is not using the ball. They're gonna using the ball can really sometimes it can be really intimidating for people to decide what they need for their body. So overcoming an overwhelming anxiety, the pressure to make choices can trigger anxiety, stress, and especially around, am I going to get it wrong? So oftentimes when you look at Pilates, especially if they're newbies, they want to get it right. And it's not necessarily. And so you're going to hear me say to people, you're moving your body the way it's meant to be moved right now. And I don't over cue in the beginning especially when I'm working with new clients. There also can be a fear of consequences, which means that oftentimes when people have gone through trauma, they're hyper aware of potentially things having a negative outcome around decision making, and it can be daunting for them. So giving them small choices to allow them to make decisions based on what is for their own body. The trauma also causes people to lose confidence within themselves, leading to one's ability to make sound decisions. So they've gone through trauma and they have low self-esteem, and now we're asking them to make a choice or make a decision. Again, this is something that we don't always necessarily think about. And then there's another version, and maybe you've heard this before, but paralysis by analysis, which it means excessive contemplation and fear about making mistakes can lead to like a paralysis of making a decision about what they're going to do. So just being mindful when you're teaching that people are coming to our classes, and maybe just the fact that they're stepping through the door is a huge decision for them to do. I have a client I work with, and she told me, and I do specifically trauma-informed work with her, and she told me that it took her 3 weeks to get up the courage to email me to come and take a class with me. So to me, the fact that it was a win for her. So what I want to do now is demonstrate how I use choices in my classes. And so I brought some props with me this morning. I have a ball, I have a half roll back, or a half foam roller, I should say. And it's small, but I want to, and then I also I have a long band, which can, you could use it to loop it and make it a smaller band. I just brought what was going to be the most accessible for me to demonstrate with. But the half roll back can be used a few different ways. So for example, if somebody has, you're doing, let's just say you're beginning to start to do a roll down or a roll back, and you can give people that external validation of where they're, especially if they're having issues with engagement of their core, because people that are going to be coming to you if they've gone through trauma, core awareness is going to be the last thing. So when there's a disconnect in the body, it starts within the core. So you have disconnect between the head and the body, but it's just body awareness in general is very disconnected. So let's start with just bringing it, and I want to again, so let's start with our knees bent, and these are the options that I give people. So I want you to sit nice and tall, tuck your fingers behind your knees and sit tall as you open your chest. And let's take a breath in and out, and notice how your breath allows your shoulders to relax down and back. Now I want you to think about rocking back through the pelvis and bringing it forward. Let's do this 2 more times, and then we're going to add on with, so this would be version 1. Version 2 would be to extend their arms straight out. Maybe they're going to go back a little bit further. But as an instructor, you can tell that they're going to need some kind of support. And you might say, you could use the ball behind your back as you roll back. So it's a point of reference. So it's not only an external cue for their body to understand, but it also is helping them to learn how to engage their core muscles. And then from there, if they're doing well and you want to teach the full version, and maybe you can tell, you might even place the ball between your hands, but just initiating that roll back, and then you pause. And now if people have difficulty coming up, you could have them bend their knees. There's a multitude of things. And then you nod your chin and you gently come up. Now the next one I want to talk about is placement of the bodies in the classroom. So if you notice that somebody is really fidgety, having a door closed on the classroom can be sometimes very alarming for people. And when you think about sexual abuse from a woman's standpoint, 1 in 4 women are sexually abused, which means that more than likely at some point you're going to come across a person in your class that has been sexually abused. So let's come back down onto our backs. And this exercise, which is going to be like circles, can be used both on the reformer as well as on the mat. So when somebody has gone through sexual trauma, you want to think about your languaging around them as well as your placement of your own body as you're doing, like if you're walking around the classroom. So I usually can tell like when people are not always really comfortable, so I give different options. So instead of doing, so we're just going to start with some basic ones here. So circling through their hips, which could also lead to keeping your knees bent and coming into toe tap. So again, giving them control. And then from here, maybe lifting their legs up, maybe keeping your knees bent, and you start to make some more small circles. If you notice that their circles are really small, don't judge. Let them be where they are. And then from here, start with smaller circles. And you might do 4 in each direction. And then you might say, if you feel comfortable here, Then take it out and bring it around and make larger leg circles. And this to me is one of the most important aspects of learning about being, what I'm going to say, offering choices, but also being trauma informed. It is crucial that we honor people where they are, along with sitting for saw. Maybe they feel better. I give people choices. Your choice would be open your legs as wide as your mat, or maybe you want to keep them a little closer together. Or if you feel really flexible today, you can open your legs really wide and sit tall, extend your arms, and then rotate as you come into saw. So with either position here, they're still going to get the benefit of the same exercise as they're doing this. And I think it's important to, again, honor where their legs are in relation to the external rotation here. So we also could do spine articulation again. So typically spine articulation is done with legs together. Sometimes if people's pelvis and they have issues with sitting, you could have them roll their mat up. You could also have them sit on that half roll back, like I talked about earlier. So you can start with your arms out and just to articulate. And you might even find they have compression or they're really stiff through their hips. And again, this is without us knowing. It's just offering options that respect our students in our class. And I think as an instructor, offering choices is not always something, I mean, for many of us, we learned options in our training. But if you're new to Pilates and you're teaching, looking at things that you can offer suggestions and choices to make people feel safe within their body, but it also empowers them to make decisions based on how their body is feeling. So I just want to go back to the leg circles that I was talking about a minute ago, because leg circles, it can be really vulnerable for a lot of people, a lot of women specifically. And I think that even sitting with your legs crossed can also be vulnerable. So a lot of times I will use terms like you can sit with your legs extended, or maybe you want to cross them and I like to do some abdominal circling. So this can be done either way. So I am contemporary trained and I incorporate a lot of different, I'm going to call it Pilates inspired movements, because I feel it's important to teach to everyone in our classrooms. Well, if you're teaching a large class, let's just say 12 and under, but even having 12 people, we don't know how many of them are going to be coming to us. And it's not our job, excuse me, it's not our job as Pilates teachers to know people's trauma. It's still everything that we're doing is working within the scope of our practice, but it's having that understanding and knowledge that when you look at today's society, there's a gentleman that writes a book and it's entitled Trauma is at an Epidemic. And this has been since COVID, and everybody's gone through a trauma of some sort. Maybe not sexual trauma, but I feel it still is something that we need to honor and respect and let people have a voice and a choice and agency around their own bodies. So being cautious about our language that we're using, pausing and letting people actually feel in their bodies. And I mean, I understand if you're teaching an athletic class, things have to move consistently, but we still want to be cognizant about everyone that's in our environment. So if you would like, there's actually a booklet that I have I've written, and it correlates with this. So when I talk about voice, choice, and agency, this is just one aspect, and it's a very small section on choice, because choice can elude into a much bigger topic. I actually spend a whole workshop on just choice. But if you'd like a copy of what I'm going to call my promo demo book, it's about 5 pages in length. Please email me at studio tpil595@gmail.com, and I will send you a copy of the promo book. So thanks for joining me today. And also, if you have questions, you can send them to me at that same email address. I look forward to hearing from you. And if you are inquiring, I run trauma-informed movement. Probably, I'm going to run another section of it in the fall. So this would be for September of 24. I don't have the dates just yet, but I'm not, it's not continual. I run it periodically. So, and it's not just being trauma informed, it's being trauma and nervous system informed. So thanks for joining me.